The city bus was warm in the way public transit always was. Too many bodies, damp coats, and the stale heat trapped between fogged windows. Outside, late afternoon light turned the puddles along the curb into bright metal, but inside the cabin everything felt dimmer, heavier, impatient. Kieran Miles stepped on at the Oak Ridge stop with a canvas tote on one shoulder and a tired look he couldn't fully hide. He was a black man in his early 30s, clean-cut, wearing a simple dark jacket and work boots that still had dust on the edges. He'd just finished a double shift at the distribution centre and all he wanted was to get home, heat up leftovers, and stop using his body like a machine. He tapped his transit card at the reader. The screen blinked. Declined. Kieran frowned and tapped again, slower this time, thinking maybe it hadn't read properly. Declined. He checked his phone quickly. Balance should have been fine. He'd topped it up 2 days ago. He tapped once more. Same result. Behind him, the line of boarding passengers began to tighten, people shifting, sighing, the soft social pressure of move. Kieran turned slightly, keeping his voice calm. "Hey, I think the reader's acting up," he said to the driver. "My card should have funds." The driver didn't look at him right away. He was white, late 40s, broad shoulders under a transit uniform jacket. His name badge read Dale Hargrove. Dale finally glanced up with an expression that wasn't neutral. It was already irritated, already convinced. "Card says declined," Dale said flatly. "That's not my problem." Kieran kept his tone polite. "Could you try resetting it? Or I can pay another way. The app..." Dale cut him off with a quick wave. "I don't have time for your app," he said. "Either you pay or you step off." Kieran felt the heat rise in his chest, but he kept it contained. He pulled his phone out, thumb moving fast as he opened the payment screen. The signal inside the bus was weak. The loading icon spun like it was taking its time on purpose. "I'm pulling it up," Kieran said, still calm. "Just a second." Dale leaned back slightly in his seat and raised his voice so the whole front half of the bus could hear. "Everybody always has just a second," he said. Then it turns into a whole performance. A few passengers laughed. Quick, uncomfortable laughter that wasn't really about humour, just about not wanting tension near them. Kieran's jaw tightened. He kept his eyes on his phone, forcing the app to load. "It's coming up," he said. Dale's eyes flicked to the line behind Kieran. "Look at this," he said louder, as if narrating a show. "People got places to be, and you want to hold the whole bus hostage." Kieran finally got the screen to appear. "Here," he said, lifting the phone slightly. "I can scan." Dale didn't lean forward. He didn't reach for a scanner. He just stared at Kieran like the phone was an insult. "We don't do that," he said, even though the scanner unit was mounted right there on the pole. "You should have had your money ready before you got on." Kieran stared, blinking once. "I did," he said, voice controlled. "The card is acting up. I'm offering another method." Dale's mouth twisted. "Yeah, sure," he said. "It's always acting up. Funny how that happens." Something in the tone made the air in the front of the bus go sharper. People leaned slightly, pretending they weren't listening while listening anyway. Kieran lowered his phone. His voice stayed even, but quieter now. "Why are you talking to me like that?" he asked. Dale snorted. "Like what?" he said. "Like you didn't pay? Because you didn't pay." Kieran held his ground. "I'm trying to," he said. Dale's voice rose again, confident in the attention he'd gathered. "No," he said. "You're trying to argue. You people always want to argue." The words hit the bus like a slap. Kieran's stomach dropped, not from surprise, he'd heard variations of it before, but from the publicness, from the way Dale said it like it was a joke everyone was supposed to understand. A woman near the front, a middle-aged passenger with a grocery bag, looked down at her shoes like she wished she could disappear. A teenager with earbuds paused his music. A man in a suit shifted uncomfortably and stared out the window. Kieran's hands tightened around the tote strap. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't step closer. He did the opposite. He got calmer because he knew exactly how quickly calm could be rewritten as threatening if the wrong person decided it. "You don't know me," Kieran said steadily, "and I'm not you people." Dale's eyes narrowed. "Don't get smart," he snapped. "Either you pay cash or you get off." Kieran swallowed. He didn't carry cash. He used his card and his phone like everyone else. "Can you print a fare exception slip?" he asked, reaching for procedure instead of emotion. "Some drivers do that when the reader fails. I can settle it at the depot." Dale barked a laugh. "This ain't a charity bus," he said. "Off?" Kieran looked down the aisle. People were watching now. Not all of them, but enough. He felt the familiar pressure. Comply or become a scene. He hated that this always became the calculation. He could step off and walk the 2 miles home in work boots. He could do that. It would be humiliating, but safe. Or he could stay and insist on the rules and risk Dale escalating, risk the police being called, risk being turned into a headline in the wrong way. Kieran breathed in and made his choice. He stepped back, not off the bus yet, just out of the narrow space at the fare box. "Okay," he said calmly, "I'm going to step off because you're refusing to let me pay, but I want your name and badge number." Dale's smile turned sharp. "It's right there," he said, tapping his chest like he was proud. "Dale Hargrove." Kieran nodded once, committing it to memory. Then he stepped down onto the curb. As he did, Dale leaned out slightly and called after him, loud enough for everyone still on board to hear. "Next time, have your money ready like a grown man." The doors hissed shut. The bus pulled away. Kieran stood on the sidewalk, rain-slicked wind cutting through his jacket, watching the taillights shrink. His hands were trembling now, not from cold, but from the mix of anger and shame he refused to hand over to a stranger. He pulled his phone out and looked at his transit balance again. It showed funds. He stared at it for a second, then lifted the card and examined it. It wasn't cracked, it wasn't worn through, it looked normal. A car passed, spraying a thin mist of water onto the curb. Kieran stepped back, blinking fast, forcing himself not to spiral. Then his phone buzzed, an alert from the transit app. "Payment declined, reader error detected on Route 16. Kieran read it twice. Reader error. Not no funds, meaning the system had recorded it, meaning it wasn't his imagination and it wasn't funny how that happens. It was a technical fault. Kieran's anger sharpened into something clearer. Dale didn't just refuse to help. Dale chose to humiliate him publicly and then tried to frame it as Kieran's character flaw. Kieran opened the Transit Authority's customer service chat. It was after hours, so it routed to an automated portal. He didn't vent. He documented route number, stop, time, driver name, description of refusal, description of you people, comment, mention of app alert indicating reader error. Then he hit submit. A message appeared. "A supervisor will review your report. If this involves safety or discrimination, please call our hotline." Kieran stared at the word discrimination and felt his throat tighten. He hated that he had to decide whether the system would take him seriously or label him dramatic for naming what happened. He clicked the hotline number and called. A woman answered, voice calm and professional. "Transit operations, this is Maribel Sosa. How can I help you?" Kieran took a breath. "My name is Kieran Miles," he said. "I was just removed from Route 16 at Oak Ridge because the fare reader declined my card. The app now shows it was a reader error. The driver refused to let me pay by phone and made a discriminatory comment in front of passengers." Maribel's tone changed instantly. Less customer service, more incident response. "Are you safe right now?" she asked. "Yes," Kieran said. "I'm on the sidewalk." "Okay," Maribel said. "I'm pulling the route camera feed and fare log for that bus. Give me the exact time." Kieran glanced at his screen. 5:42 p.m., he said. "Understood," Maribel replied. "Stay on the line. I'm also notifying the route supervisor." Kieran's pulse kicked up. "You can see the camera?" he asked. "Yes," Maribel said. "Front camera covers the fare box and driver area. Audio is captured at the front on this fleet. If the driver said what you reported, it will be on the recording." Kieran swallowed. He hadn't even known there was audio. He'd assumed, like most people, that anything said on a bus disappeared into the noise of the city. Maribel continued, voice steady. "We also have the farebox diagnostics," she said. "If the reader was malfunctioning, that's logged." Kieran looked down the street where the bus had disappeared. The humiliation still clung to him, but now there was a new feeling underneath it. Certainty. Because Dale Hargrove had spoken like the moment belonged to him. Like nobody could prove it later. And somewhere, in a small black dome above the driver's seat, a route camera had recorded every word. Kieran didn't go straight home. He walked to a brighter corner near a coffee shop and stood under the awning where other people were coming and going. Not because he thought Dale would come back, because he didn't want to be alone with the feeling. His phone was pressed to his ear, and Maribel Sosa stayed on the line like she understood something Kieran didn't need to explain. When you've just been publicly humiliated, you want a witness. "I'm looking at the farebox log now," Maribel said. Her voice was calm but focused. "It shows multiple declines in the same minute with an error code. That supports a reader malfunction." Kieran let out a slow breath. "So it wasn't my card," he said. "No," Maribel replied. "And I'm pulling the route camera clip from the front of the bus at 5:42. Kieran's chest tightened. "You'll be able to hear what he said?" he asked. "Yes," Maribel said. "The audio is clearer near the fare area. I need a moment." Kieran waited, staring at the wet sidewalk. In his head, he replayed Dale's words like they were stuck on repeat. Performance, hostage, you people, like a grown man. He'd stayed calm. He'd done everything right. And still, he'd been pushed off the bus like he was the problem. Then Maribel spoke again, and her tone had changed. It wasn't angry, it was precise, like someone who'd just watched something and couldn't unsee it. "Mr. Miles," she said, "I have the footage." Kieran's throat tightened. "Okay," he said. Maribel continued. "You attempted to tap your card 3 times. The reader displayed decline. You offered mobile payment. The driver did not attempt to scan your phone. He told you to step off. You asked for a fare exception. He refused." Kieran's jaw tightened. "And the comment?" he asked quietly. Maribel paused. "Yes," she said. "He said, quote, 'You people always want to argue. That is captured on audio.'" Kieran closed his eyes for a second. Relief hit first, because he hadn't imagined it. Then the next feeling came. Sadness, heavy and old, because being right didn't erase the moment. Maribel's voice stayed steady. "I'm escalating this to the route supervisor and to HR for discriminatory conduct," she said. "The driver is being instructed to return to the depot immediately once the current run is completed. He will be removed from service pending investigation." Kieran swallowed. "Removed?" he repeated. "Pending investigation," Maribel clarified. "But yes, taken off route tonight." Kieran leaned back against the wall under the awning. His hands were finally steady. Maribel continued. "I also want to address your immediate situation. Are you able to get home?" "I can walk," Kieran said. "It's about 2 miles. "No," Maribel replied immediately. "We're issuing you a ride voucher through our partnered taxi program. I'm texting you the code now. You should not have to pay because our equipment failed and our employee treated you that way." Kieran blinked. "Thank you," he said quietly. "You're welcome," Maribel replied. Then she added, "A supervisor will call you within an hour to take a full statement. Your report will be attached to the footage." Kieran ended the call and watched the text arrive. A voucher code and instructions. Simple, practical, a small correction to a big wrong. A few minutes later, his phone rang again. A man's voice came through, formal but controlled. "Mr. Miles, this is Troy Ellison, route supervisor. I'm calling about your incident on Route 16. Kieran stepped slightly away from the crowd under the awning, still in public view. "Yes," he said. "I've reviewed the preliminary clip," Troy said. "First, I want to apologize. That driver's behavior was unacceptable." Kieran didn't say, "It's fine." He didn't soften it to make it easier for them. "It wasn't just unacceptable," Kieran said calmly. "It was humiliating." Troy's voice stayed steady. "I understand," he said. "And the reason I'm calling is because we're treating it as a serious policy breach." Kieran kept his tone factual. "The app showed reader error," he said. "He chose to blame me." "Yes," Troy said. "The farebox logs confirm malfunction. The driver still refused available payment options, and the discriminatory statement is clearly heard." Kieran's throat tightened. "So what happens now?" he asked. Troy answered without hedging. "The driver has been removed from service pending HR review," he said. "He will be required to submit a written statement. We will also be interviewing passengers if we can, because several were visible in the front camera view." Kieran nodded, even though Troy couldn't see him. "Okay," he said. Troy continued. "You will receive an official apology letter and confirmation that this was a reader malfunction, not an insufficient funds issue. You will also receive confirmation that no incident notation will be placed on your rider profile. Our system has already tagged the fare reader error for maintenance." Kieran exhaled slowly. That last part mattered more than people realized. "Thank you," he said. "Because that's how these things follow you." "I know," Troy replied quietly, and Kieran could hear that Troy did know, maybe from training, maybe from experience, maybe from watching too many situations spiral because nobody handled them early. Troy added, "If you'd like, we can also connect you with our civil rights compliance officer, but that's your choice." Kieran didn't hesitate. "I'd like that," he said, "because if he talks like that on a bus, he talks like that elsewhere." "Understood," Troy said. "I'll arrange it." The taxi arrived a few minutes later. Kieran slid into the back seat, warm air hitting his face, and finally felt the day loosen its grip. He got home and sat on his couch without turning on the lights. He stared at the wall, listening to the quiet. His phone buzzed again. An email from Transit Operations with a case number and a short note confirming the voucher. Then, the next morning, another email arrived, this one more formal, with a subject line that made his stomach flip. Outcome, Route 16, Incident Review. It stated that the fare reader had malfunctioned, the driver had refused alternative payment procedures, and the driver had violated the Transit Authority's anti-discrimination policy. It said the driver was placed on unpaid suspension pending final HR action and required to complete recertification training if he were to return at all. Kieran read it twice. He didn't feel giddy. He felt clean, in a way, like the record matched reality, like the humiliation didn't get the last word. A week later, Kieran boarded Route 16 again. Same stop, same time, different driver. He did it on purpose, not to prove bravery, but to reclaim something small. He tapped his card. This time it beeped and flashed green instantly. He sat near the front, by choice, and looked around. The bus rolled forward smoothly, city passing by in wet reflections. A new driver glanced at him briefly and nodded, simple and neutral. No jokes, no narration, no audience. And Kieran realized the happy ending wasn't just that Dale got punished. The happy ending was that the bus became what it should have been all along. A public service where everyone could ride without being turned into a spectacle. Because the route camera did what cameras do best. It didn't argue, it didn't assume, it just showed the truth.